meeting to order. Almighty God, you have blessed us with memory, reason, and skill. Help us to use them wisely in the service of our town government. We ask this in thy holy name, amen. Just salute the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Welcome, everyone. Tom, anything for public forum, or you want to wait on?
No, I just thought it's time to come see one of your meetings.
Are you expecting somebody else, I understand, or do you know? Or?
Well, Greg thought he might be here, but.
That's what I
that's all.
heard.
Yeah,
Okay. If any questions, certainly can ask.
okay, thank you.
I'd like a motion to approve the minutes of November 13th.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes from November 13th.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions?
I do have one question.
Yes.
On the third page, Jane was supposed to check on whether or not we could transfer money from one account to pay the loan.
Yes.
Do you know if she did check on that?
Yes.
What the result was?
And we can.
We can.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. At the end of the year meeting, always when we transfer funds from one to another, has to be paid back within that year, but we don't need the year. Okay. Within a year.
Thank you.
Yes.
Did you get a copy of the email that was sent to me regarding that? I called a state office and asked that question,
No.
and I explained our dilemma with the water and so on. And I was asking if funds could transfer from one account to another to pay for that. I was told yes.
Well,
Explain it to me.
when you say transfer with the intent to pay
With the
back.
payback, yes. You
Okay.
can
You
move
can't
from
just take
one
money from
account to
one account to
another.
another.
And I understand
You
the
can borrow from
stipulation
one account
is
to the
1
other.
year. Return them. They followed that up with an email to me. I got a copy of that, and I brought it in to
Yeah.
make sure that
It's
they're.
not an issue.
If you'd like to see that, I'll forward it to you.
No,
So
it's,
it-
no, we check.
I'm fine with that.
Yes.
As long as-
Okay.
And we use audit control quite often when we need to.
And you're not restricted as to what accounts that you can borrow from?
Only the one that's got enough money in it to borrow from. Yeah, no,
Okay.
yeah. We normally leave that to Jane, she knows what the fund balances are, these.
I didn't know if there were stipulations.
Not to my
Because
knowledge.
with debt, sometimes you're,
We did borrow money, as you probably well know, to finish paying our salt shed,
correct.
two different accounts. Anticipating $150,000 from Betty Little, which has been several months, we have not gotten that money yet. I did talk to that office this week. I just wanted to know if there's something that we could do, or if we haven't done everything proper as far as the paperwork. They tell me it's all in order, just a matter of time, and the state releases the funds. Okay, $100,000 of that goes back into the highway, and $50,000 goes back into the general fund. Okay. No, any other questions on the minutes? I believe I had a motion in a second. Any other questions? If not, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That's carried, thank you. We have our town clerk's monthly report. I would like a motion to approve, that's the desire of the board.
I make a motion that we approve the town clerk's monthly report for November 1st through November 30th.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any questions on the monthly report? Town clerk's monthly report. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That's also carried. Nikki Tato is asking permission to go to training. I believe, is this in Lake Placid, Julie, do you know?
Yes.
Lake Placid in March, from March 4th through the 7th. This is where he needs to get his recertification every year. He has to update his courses. This is something we've always allowed, we really need to do it. I would like a motion to approve, though.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
Second.
Any questions? Thank you. That's in the budget every year. Okay. The general code would estimate to update the code book. Julie, this is something you use, I believe?
Yeah, well, it's here for anybody to see, it's all with the local laws and everything.
Okay.
And we've had a few since 2017, and they're not in the book. So in order to update the book, they gave us an estimate.
Yes, I read the estimate, it's between $1,300, $1,500, $1,600. Now, this is something we need, in my opinion, we need to update, keep our books up to date on the local laws, on the state laws, okay?
Do we need a vote on Mike Tatros,
I think it was, didn't we? Did we
We
vote?
did, yeah.
question? We had a motion that was seconded.
I was
I didn't vote on the
Yeah.
money.
Do we need to vote on it or no? Just let it go.
No, we did not vote, I want to vote on it, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay, I just,
All those in favor of letting Mike go to Lake Placid for training in March? Those in favor?
no,
Aye.
Opposed? Carried, thank you. That was my mistake, I didn't do it. Now, the general code. It's something that we should keep updated. We don't do this every year, do we, Gina?
No,
Okay,
no, it hasn't been updated since 2017.
okay. Okay. I would like a motion to approve, if that's the will of the board.
I make a motion, go ahead, John.
I make a motion to approve the, general code.
Okay, thank you. That's a second on that?
Second that.
Thank you. Any other questions?
So Julie,
Go ahead.
Julie, they just provide us with the supplemental pages and they don't provide new code books?
No,
It's just.
just inserts.
Just inserts.
Thank you. Okay.
And it's 10
Well,
and
I
up?
got I guess I got a question, why does it cost, if they're just giving us, the new codes with the insert, why does it cost so much money? Is that what they're, I mean, you know, we used to all get code books, no matter what job you're in, through the state, but, you know,
Yeah, but these aren't the state codes, these are the town codes. These are our local code books.
right.
You see where it says here, set of 10 supplemental pages? Just
10 sets of
Yeah,
supplemental pages, yeah.
okay,
10 sets of supplemental pages, 10 sets, okay, so
well,
we don't know how many,
the court must
Right.
have
We
it.
have 10 books here,
okay.
and they'll
So
send us the pages to insert inside those 10 books. I'll put them in.
Right.
I mean, I don't know why it
Multiple,
costs so much.
that seems to be a normal cost,
No.
pretty expensive. I mean, if they give you, I know you got 10 books, but they give you 2, 3 supplements for each book.
I'm sure there's a lot of
Not a lot
research.
paperwork, just-
Well, it's gonna be
But we can't get
laws.
around it anyway, right?
3
No.
laws in local, in 2017, and then in 2018, we've got 4 laws. So it's gonna be 7 laws total, that's gonna be added to the book.
New ones that we've approved?
Yeah, local
Yes.
laws, which is.
oh, for $1,500.
And I think what you're paying
Quality
for,
paper they're using.
Yeah,
I think you're paying for the 4th and 5th bulleted item though, John.
yeah.
I think those 2 bulleted items are really, you know, because what they do is they pick up any conflicts or inconsistencies before it actually goes to publication, and they also deal with review of the statutory citations, so.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? Those in favor?
All right.
Opposed? Carried, thank you. Okay. We're gonna leave on the table tonight here, a letter from Calvin Castine pertaining to, his, programming on the access, public access channel. He's been on, he's not gonna be able to be on it. Did you read this over? Brian, you read it over?
Yeah,
It's a letter of support, basically.
yes, that's it, that you be allowed to
Yes,
have
yes.
a block of programming.
I have absolutely no problem with that. I think he's done a valuable service to the community.
Yes, and
No, absolutely.
Okay.
these archives are fantastic,
Yeah.
I mean, they go back so many years.
35 years or more. He's got, what I read somewhere, so many thousands of, 20,000 plus local videos. He's got a lot of them. Anyways, I would entertain a motion to, a letter of support to Calvin on this.
Absolutely.
Yes. I make a motion that we
Thank you,
write a letter
I'll
of
second
support.
thank you. Any other questions?
Yes,
Those in
this is-
favor? I don't know how we're gonna send him a letter or.
Well, it's asking for a resolution you pass.
Correct, we've got to pass a
Send it to
resolution as a government.
Thank you.
Question, is this the same outfit that we just recently negotiated?
I believe it is.
Correct, Charlie,
It is,
yes.
yeah.
So this Kevin Riley, Kevin Egan, yes, is the person who was telling, Brian, or Calvin is no longer in the works?
Not with that,
He's got to share with
Other,
Malone
Correct.
and
all the way to
Tupper
Oxford and
Lake
Messina.
and
Yeah.
Messina. And so in other words, he's saying the programming would be reduced to 3 or 4 shows, you know, maybe a day,
Yeah.
and that would be it. Where now it's on a lot, you know, most of the day.
Constantly.
So, and it could, he may not even get that.
right,
And so what he's saying is it just doesn't seem to make sense to share their entire service area. So he was wondering if we could ask for a block just for this small
Local area.
local area.
Local area only.
Which-
Makes sense?
Yeah, and it's the same company, it's too bad we didn't know about it before the contract.
Yeah.
But
So, if this is the same company that we signed a contract with, if we signed a contract with them for 10 years, and then after we've signed it, have they gone and changed the contract?
I don't know how it was worded in the contract.
I don't know about what it says about leasing of channels.
Is it worth a phone call? I'll make the phone call.
I mean, it's worth a phone call.
Yeah, go for
It's
it.
worth a phone
I'll
call.
make the phone call and complain about it.
But we do wanna send a letter of support, I'm sorry.
Right,
Well,
yeah,
let's pass a
exactly.
resolution supporting.
Exactly,
I believe I have a motion and a second on that.
right.
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right,
Thank you, I am myself. We got a couple contracts to review. First of all, on the engineer's advice, we had, last month, we had 4 bids. For the crossing of West Service Road. Brian, you got that, it was $114,000. I got it right here.
Yeah,
$114,980. It's the advice of the engineers that we approve this contract to be let out. They may do some of it this fall, I was told today, I did talk to Josh Lawyer today. He may do, not the road crossing itself, but for the road to the building. If the weather holds up, he wants to do that portion this fall, now, or I should say winter, it's pretty much here. When I went by Kings Bay this morning, I see him ice fishing, I said, the winter must be here. So I would like a motion, upon the advice of the engineers, to approve for Josh Laware Construction Company for the B-line, we call it the B-lines, West Service Road cut, for $114,980. Any questions on that? Concerns? It was the lowest of 4 bids, the highest bid was 170-some thousand. Okay. So do I have a motion?
I make a motion that we approve the bid to approve Josh Sawyer to complete the crossing on the West Service Road in the amount of $114,980.
Thank you. That contract states that he has until June 1st to get it done. Okay? And that's pending insurance certificates and stuff like that, he has to do, okay? Okay, I have a motion, is there any questions on that?
I'll second.
Okay. If there's no questions, I think on a contract that large, we probably should have a roll call vote. Rick,
Yeah, aye.
Brian,
aye.
Clark,
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Aye for myself, thank you. I have another, as you know, we had some visitors here at last month's meeting on the new construction on Route 11, they're putting up a 3-unit apartment house, the water's across the road. We've gotten 2 bids. The low bid is for $9,400. It's a company that Allen has used before, Complete Septic. They've done underground, under road piping before. They're out of Vermont, just across over the bridge somewhere. I would like a motion to approve to do that. To my knowledge, as of now, we cannot take it out of EFC money. We have not got permission to do that. So we'll have to come up with the water money somewhere out of the water fund.
So,
And we're sure there's no connections on the south side of Route 11.
Pardon?
And we're sure that there's no way that you could actually connect to somebody on the south side of Route 11, like where LaVoie's residence is or
Way too
somewhere
far.
around.
Okay, the other bid was over $15,000, which I thought was high. I think this one's high enough. Okay, and if we make a motion, I want the motion to state that it also includes the insurance certificates and everything that he has to prove. Okay,
And
and he did tell Alan today, if we approve this, he expects to do it next week.
and they would be paying us back,
Pardon?
and they would be paying us back.
No.
No,
You mean-
I mean the owners, would that?
Well, no, I don't know that. I have not seen them. The building is up, the roof is not on. We did talk last month briefly about the 3-unit apartment houses, 3 EDUs. They were willing to pay something more than that if we put the pipe across. It would be a long-term, we're couping our money, I'll tell you that. But these people need water.
so how would we pay for this? Is it
Um,
9,000 bucks?
Yeah? It's got to come out.
Is Alan involved in
Pardon?
doing any of the digging that would reduce the cost to the contractor?
Not on this one. The previous contractor with the higher bid,
All
he
right,
actually gave, same contractor gave 2 bids. One was 18,000 something.
all
He
right,
brought it down to 15 if Alan did the digging.
right.
There's so many gas lines, fiber lines in that ground, Alan didn't feel safe doing that. This contractor includes doing the digging, all the way to the foundation of the house.
And he has the insurance to fix those fiber optic lines when they're
That, he has to be insured. Okay? So I would like a motion to approve pending insurance certificates.
Is the are the engineers recommending that we go with this company that's based in Vermont?
Yes.
Is that?
Well, we
is
told them
that-
about it, and they
Put
had no-
us at further risk because of that.
Interstate, you mean? Is that what you're
No.
asking? That's a good question. I don't know. I don't know if there's anything
But
that,
the engineers are recommending that we go with this specific outfit. Or they just,
Well,
you know,
I'm going on the recommendation that Alan knows the guy, he's done work, and he's competent to do the job. Now, if there's a hesitation, we need to know that. Okay?
Yes.
I don't wanna wait, these people may want that water before spring, that house is up. It's not completed, but it's up.
yes.
That's our biggest thing, is if they don't have the water, they can't complete the building. And these people are willing to do it starting next week. That's, I mean, otherwise you're going into, I don't know.
Every time you run to an open lot where now that line all the way down about 11, is it all on the?
No, when it gets to 276, it crosses the road from the north side to the south, way up near the corner, past the corner, there's a fire hydrant right there. They
There's
cross.
no way to hook up from that fire hydrant back? I mean, it's quite a ways, but
The fire hydrant's they're both on the north side of the road there.
that's what I'm saying.
There's a fire hydrant before you get to the corner. There's one just past the corner. Then it crosses the road, they tell me, goes towards Bertles, then it goes down to Route 11.
It crosses over at Bordeaux Brothers, they have water.
Just, they have the ability, they do not take the water, to my knowledge. Bertle Brothers, they're paying ADUs. The pipe's right in front of their property. Everybody on Route 11 has to pay ADUs, whether they take the water or not.
Right, but I'm just wondering, in the future, because we've got all the empty lots, and now every time we run into that, there's gonna be a problem getting water to those people.
One
that-
side to the other.
And the town's gotta pay for that.
Well, it's not covered by EFC, right?
That,
Is my
they
understanding.
have not approved it, he's asked, he has never got approval to do that LEFC money. It was not part of the original contract.
I would like to see this done, I'm not talking
Yeah.
this, but are we possibly opening up a door that next year, somebody down a little farther wants to do something similar? And they say, well, hey, listen, you did it for this guy,
Sorry.
why can't you do it for me up here?
I mean,
I
not
don't
that,
know.
not that it shouldn't be done, but the problem is, you're setting precedents, I mean, if you don't have, it's quite a ways you gotta go through different properties to get there, but if there's some kind of a main line that you can tap into for
If-
future development.
If we use the line near Bertles, we still have to cross the town road to get to it, back this way to
To
get
that
to
side.
Right, I know that, but
it, okay?
not as critical as
It's not as
the highway.
critical, yeah.
And, the state has no problems with you
Well,
boring?
they have, Alan told, the contractor told us that they have a permit to line the road. We got one for West River, they give us a permit to dig it up, which is highly unlikely most times. The only reason they gave us a permit, they tried to bore underneath that road, and weren't successful. They can't take that road up this time of year, we give them a blacktop to fix it back up. Can't get,
I know.
well, you should,
Part of the thought, I mean, was that if we went with a 2-inch line, that if some additional, it would service some additional residential,
Correct.
if it went in,
yes,
it could be serviced right off that line.
and there was a discussion, this is for a 2-inch line, by the way, this is not a 1-inch line. Okay.
So it
So that
could
has the
serve.
capability of
Yeah,
branching off,
it need be.
right?
Yeah.
That's our problem, is getting to the other side of the road to service any, you know, new residences or businesses. This would do it.
This 2-inch gotta be enough for future use.
For housing, they told me it was, yeah.
Well, what if there's commercial, is there,
Yeah.
or is there any
Well,
zoning
and-
there where they can't?
It would be hard, you'd have, you don't know what commercial you would have there. I mean, you might end up having to have an 8-inch line there. I mean,
A hotel or something, they need a lot
yeah,
of.
a hotel or something, then you'd have to dig something bigger, and, you know, that they would cover. But this would just cover, our short-term needs. If they had mentioned, I don't know how serious they are, they had mentioned about, you know, building on an adjacent lot or something. It would cover something like that.
It would have to be fairly close, it can't be a half mile down the road, you know.
Yeah,
Well, yeah, because they got an acre, they did mention if this is successful, that they
Yeah.
might build another. At what point do you go to a bigger,
well, you wouldn't wanna go big, 2-inch, I don't think you'd wanna go bigger than that without knowing exactly.
2 inches, 3 times an inch line, I mean, you know, it's,
well, I know, it's
yeah,
water.
volume of water that can go through.
Have the engineers weighed in on this at all in terms of the feasibility of it?
What's his name?
Engineers, they're just totally out of the picture of this.
Well, they know about it, they tried to get it approved by EFC. and
Okay, but in terms of the logistics of it, the technical aspect of it,
Well,
have they had an opinion on it?
he told me 1 inch would be adequate, 2 inch would be much better. There's very little difference, they told us, between a 1 and 2 inch. We got the same digging. It takes a bigger meter, they told me, for one thing. Meter was a couple $100 more than an inch meter. There is some extra cost, but then you've got something that's better than a 1 inch.
But if you're, at what point would you consider putting, what was the next,
After a 2-inch?
what would be the next size if you got more? What is it, what would be the next?
Well, I know they have a
step?
4 inch line, I don't know if they have a 3 or not.
4? I mean,
What's the recommendation for a 4-inch? I mean, what type of capacity is that requested?
Well, I know he's not gonna put a 4 inch line for that price, I know that. I can bet on that,
they wouldn't put a 4-inch?
not for that price they're giving us.
They're boring a hole. It's gonna, it takes that much difference to put in a 2 inches wide?
An 8 inch hole just to bore into the West Service Road was $50,000-$60,000 more just for that one crossing.
Was that a rock?
Yeah, well, you're more likely to hit something too. You know, have problems, there maybe the state requires you shore it up somehow or have it in a sleeve. I'm just guessing.
Yeah.
And the other
Well,
thing is you want something that has a lot of flow. I mean, if you go to a larger line and you don't have enough flow through it, you know, the water gets stale. I mean, you know, the sediment gets a chance to settle, gets a chance to freeze. You know, it's.
Right, you wanna keep the flow in.
Yeah, you wanna have something that there's,
I know this is probably not, there's probably, well, I'd say, can I call a friend?
Yeah,
And ask, these guys, these gentlemen in the village have been fixing, what is the, can I ask them if it's, your opinion with the 2-inch line, or when in the village, cause you guys do all the repairs, when in the village do you decide to go to a bigger line than 2-inch?
When the need is necessary, you're talking about the 3-apartment building?
yes.
2-inch line is more than adequate there.
Yeah, cause what he stated, what Brian stated about stale water is very true. That large line we've got going around this point, that water doesn't get turned over nearly enough, so you have to depend on flushing to keep it cleared.
Right.
So if you're gonna service a residence like that, you put too large of a line in and they don't use enough water, that'll never get clear because you're not gonna flush it, you're gonna go knock on their door and ask them to run the water all day to try to clear it out. So having a large line would be a problem in regards to that, if you're not using enough water.
2 inches more than adequate, and it's less expensive, you only have to have a 4-inch board.
Mhm.
And then your water meter, I'm assuming that you're gonna go into that apartment house and then have 3 separate meters, one for each apartment. So they can be read separately. Of course, that all depends on the landowner. Landowner can
Yes.
have 1 meter and divvy up whatever they wanna do. 2-inch meter is somewhere in the vicinity of $600,
How much again?
about 6.
That much, okay.
4-inch meters, probably double that.
And a 1-inch meter?
Well, if he puts a 2-inch line and then he can tap off to put a 1-inch line
Yes.
in his own apartment building.
Yes, 1 inch or 3/4.
Yeah, 1 inch.
Then you can hook your, if you want a separate meter, you can hook the separate meters up for each apartment. Or you can run one master meter in there and just read that. It's up to the landowner.
But certainly if he built additional apartments in the backside of that lot, it'd be his responsibility to take off that line and get to his second building, not ours.
Right, right. Well, we bring the water across the road.
And can I ask a question, are you just bringing it across the road and it's his responsibility from their end?
No, take him to the basement.
You're taking it right to the basement?
That's what we did on everybody's really.
So would we,
That's right.
No. That would have been part of the agreement starting the project, but is it because the project's not closed out, you're willing to do that?
Yeah, but he was not part of the project when it was approved originally, okay? In other words, he came in, if he had a
Right.
building permit in hand a couple of years ago, when the project, 2-3
No,
years ago.
that's not what I mean, by providing it right to the basement is an additional cost to the town. Originally, when we're running lines down Route 11, that was part of the agreement, if you tap on now,
Yes,
we do this for free.
You're only responsible to the valve box.
Exactly. That's
The
my
owner's
opinion.
responsible from the building to that valve box. It's an extra
So-
expense. If you're gonna dig the trench from the valve box where it shuts the water on and off, if you're gonna dig that trench into that building, that should be the owner's expense.
they told me it was, from the north side of the road all the way to his basement was roughly 180 feet.
It was what, I'm sorry?
180 feet.
Yeah,
That's probably about right.
yeah.
so should, well, that, if, I guess the question is if he has, should we mandate that if we wanna get, if you wanna have EDUs, you wanna have a meter for each separate apartment?
Well, he will be paying 3 EDUs whether he has 1 meter or 3 meters, if I'm correct.
Yeah, you're correct.
Maybe we should make it clear to him that if he's gonna hook up and have 3 apartments, that we wanna make sure it'll, regardless of who pays for it, but at least,
3 meters?
yeah, why not?
But isn't it the owner's choice, the landowner's choice?
Is it his
whether or not they
choice,
wanna-
or can we,
For what?
Whether or not to go with individual meters or just one.
It's the owner's choice.
Yeah.
Because you might include it in the rent.
Well, I'm expecting to get one more EDU out of this,
You're gonna have 3 EDUs.
yes.
Now remember, you gotta separate usage from EDUs. You're gonna get to 3 EDUs no matter what. It's the usage that you have to master, you got to read off your meter to know how much you're gonna charge per thousand.
Right.
So I mean, the EDUs is just whatever you're gonna, decide to charge, whether it's 113 or whatever you come up with, but it's 3 EDUs. And then your meter is just gonna read the usage and you're gonna bill for usage. It's separate, that's a separate issue.
And bill the landowner for it.
His call, not ours. Okay,
Okay.
this is a little board here, it's gotta fall together. I know, get this done, you might not need it till spring on this construction crew, I don't know.
I'll call a question.
Yes,
I'll
support that, I have a motion then, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any other questions? Let's have a roll call vote. Rick?
Aye.
Brian?
Aye.
Clark?
Aye.
John?
All right.
And I for myself, thank you. Okay, we've got those two done. Julie, what do you got?
Just a CCWD restoration disbursement number
Yeah,
6.
that will be fine.
Weir construction for $24,276.
This is the paving that he did on the west service road for Derringers and on the east service road for duty free, I believe it is. That was the driveway that we had problems with for a year or so there. Those are done. I'd like a motion to approve. This has gotta go to our attorney, our engineers, then to the state before they pay it.
I'll make a motion to approve the expenditure for
Okay.
the water.
I second that.
Thank you. Any questions? We'll have a roll call vote with over $20,000. Rick?
Aye.
Brian?
Aye.
Clark?
Aye.
John?
All right.
And I for myself, thank you. What else you have, Julie? That's it?
Yeah.
I can't think of anything else, I always seem to forget something once in a while. You have your dog control officer's report that was came in this afternoon after I left, explaining why we don't have a full report. I need a motion to approve the monthly bills. Do you have any
Can we go back to Kaylee's report here?
Yes,
She says in that fourth paragraph about the shelter contract has to be signed
Yes.
with a shelter for the dogs of 2019. What has to be done there?
well, she's no longer using her shelter that she used to have in Moore's. She found this one in Malone, right? Brian, you're aware of this, I'm sure. I don't know what choice we have at the moment. We've explored other avenues for dog control, not just dog control officers, but shelters. And we have nothing available. Brian did call one person, and they have not called back. I don't believe Brian.
They called back, but said they needed to think about it.
Yeah.
They haven't, but we haven't pursued it because we didn't know we would have been a change or not.
We're not voting on a contract, that's just a report here.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'll try to have something at the end of the month, our annual meeting, but it's been a hassle. Dog control officers, we've had 3 since I've been here. It's not an easy job, and it's 24-hour call, 7 days a week. Okay, any other questions on that?
No.
Okay. Need a motion to approve the bills? Did I get one? Not yet.
motion to approve the bills.
Thank you,
I'll second that.
thank you. Any concerns on any of the bills?
My usual concern is the water administration.
Where are you?
I'm on the front page,
Okay,
down about 4 or 5 items.
Is it the
So-
Endine?
Huh?
Is it the Endine Incorporated?
No, the one below that,
Okay, yeah.
water administration, $796 for legal services.
that's, well, that was Matt Fabro's bill for the month,
For the month.
yes. He only sends a monthly bill, once a month.
And all of it was charged to water? Were there
Uh,
any other issues that were talked about?
Well, I can't remember anything else. It seems to be dominating our conversations lately, I'll tell you. Certainly Jane can tell you exactly why it was. He itemizes it, so we know.
No, it was. You have to look at his specific, yeah, I'm assuming he gave us a specific written bill.
He gives an itemized bill.
Right, okay. And all of it pertained to
The
water.
time that he, to the minute,
Oh,
okay? If it's 60 minutes, he divides it by 10, if he talks to you for 6 minutes, you get a tenth of an hour's charge, okay? To the minute. Any other questions on the bills? I do have a motion, I believe, in a second. If there's no questions, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's carried. The big item was the salt that we bought, if you noticed, okay? I have nothing else. Greg, would you like an executive session?
No, this is fine. I'm fine.
Okay,
I had the opportunity to talk to Mr. Renane this afternoon.
okay.
I know that he has talked to Mr. Fabro. I guess the suggestion was to, at least from Tom to me, and I believe Matt as well, was to find out exactly what you folks are looking at in terms of this agreement. With the idea that this IMA, and I think we all agree, that this IMA has to be torn apart and rewritten. And I have to tell you, I'm very discouraged by the fact that last year we waited until the third week in December, second week in December before this was brought up for discussion. And then it was a hassle. There was a change in water rates, there was this, there was that. There was a change in what was going to get paid and who was going to pay what. And I asked, I mean, we got the check in the mail on time. And I asked that it not go that way again this year for 2018. I asked that we sit down in February and start negotiating on how we were going to handle this loan repayment this coming December, which is now. I have to make a budget in April. I have to have it approved. My fiscal year goes from June 1st to May 31st. I have to have that stuff in. So, upon repeated requests and no response, all of a sudden it's October. No, it's September 20th. Because that's my birthday and we had the first meeting on that night. And then we we talked about a few things, and then we went to the next, about 2 weeks, or Rick, I'm sure 3 weeks or whatever, you were busy, and, you know, that was fine, that was great. And then there was nothing. And here we are, the 11th day of December. A loan repayment is due in 3 weeks. And there's still no discussion here. There's still nothing put down so that everybody can feel comfortable about this and move forward. I mean, I hope that this doesn't go on for the next 28 years. It just can't do it. So Mr. Renane suggested that I ask, and that's why I'm here. I ask what is it that the town's looking for, and that there's some sort of agreement that the negotiations for the next year will start no later than the middle of January. We're stuck here. We're not moving forward. I think in my phone call with Rick, I mentioned, you know, there's more to that IMA than just the repayment of this loan that needs to be addressed. If we can't settle down here and you know, come up with a working strategy to get the payment done, well, we can still address the other issues. There's an O&M issue. There's, you know, issues with the filtration plant. There's other things that can be addressed, and you know, the village is more than willing. I mean, we're more than willing to sit down and talk with people. I mean, the door is always open. The material's there. I will give you whatever you ask for. I will give it to you, but I'm going to tell you on one proviso. That it's not held against the village. I'm tired of this damn finger pointing and blaming the village for what is going on here. We've tried our best to get through this. I mean, you know, this finger pointing doesn't work. It's the village's fault. Well, that's BS. You're getting your water cheaper than you were getting it 2 years ago. It's you. Own up to it. It's you that raised the price from, you're paying $7.22, you're charging your customers, or we're charging your customers $9.04, and all of a sudden it's $13 and something. You can't blame the village for that.
Okay, I agree with what you're saying, the rates had to go up.
Well, that's great, I'm happy,
Okay,
you know, that
but they had to go up.
they had to go up, you're owning up to that, and I'm very happy with that.
Well, they-
But I don't want the finger pointing at the village,
Okay.
because we're more than willing to sit down and talk with anybody.
Okay, if I could have the floor for just a minute.
You sure can.
You and the village have offered to abide by the first contract, not the second one,
The September one.
yes. The September one is the one you don't agree with, am I correct?
I don't agree with either one of them.
Okay, but we both signed it.
Yes, we did. And we
yes,
must
yes.
understand the consequence, or the
Okay.
reasoning why that second one was signed.
Okay, but you and I had a meeting last week with our attorney, there was absolutely no movement. I looked for middle ground, and I wrote a few things down here, why you agreed that you probably should pay 60% of the value of the water plant and the towers, am I correct?
You gotta remember that that water plant is different. That was, all of that was paid for by the project. What you're talking about here is, yes, we use 60% of the water, but that was figured in the project costs at that time.
Okay,
That water filtration plant went over budget by, if I remember correctly, about $600,000. Half of that extra $1 million that Matt Cooper secured for us, half of it went to the water plant, 240 some thousand. The other 50,000 or 500,000 went to the loan, to knock off a bit of the loan. Yes, we use 60%, but that water filtration plant is a separate issue. That is an ongoing issue, and we have to pay for that. They paid to put it up. Now it's up to the village to pay for the operation, and that's part of your O&M, was to pay for the operation of that filtration plant.
are we helping to pay for part of the operation of the plant, buying water at $7.22?
No, because that's a separate issue. We separate the O&M from that filtration plant.
Okay, I just wrote a few things down.
Sure.
Charted it out today. You indicated to us that the pipe was all in the township, the new pipe, I should say, and that's not quite.
$8.5 million worth.
That's not quite true. It's not all in the township. You have several hundred feet of new pipe in the village.
I don't know where it is.
Do you have a,
Just across the road.
do you have a new pipe from the tower to Polkhead Drive? That's in the village?
There's a short section there, yes.
half a
And
mile.
there's a short section on the railroad bed,
The
and
railroad
there's a
bed?
short section that goes
Okay.
under the river.
So you did have at least 3 sections of new pipe, okay? You have several new reducing valves, or vaults, they call them, I believe, with reducing valves in them, am I correct?
Mhm.
There are vaults in the village, that's to protect the whole system. Not just the village area,
Okay.
but the whole
But-
system.
Okay. And I feel you have some value to the pipe in the township because your water goes through it at a much higher rate than you're charging your own village users.
That's because they own the system. They paid for 30 years for that system. The wells and all of that infrastructure, except for what was put in there by the project. That is village owned.
I would also like to talk about the $30,000 annual fee. Originally, the village was gonna do the billing and collecting, they're not doing that now.
That's because your own staff requested that this stay in this building.
It's not because our staff did, it's because the auditors recommended.
Okay,
You don't believe I'm right?
I believe there's more to it than the auditor saying that it should be here.
Okay, but the auditors still should be here. So I feel that $30,000 should be adjusted to some point, okay?
The
So,
$30,000 is just for the operation of that plant. And we showed your negotiators the dollar value of what that has cost us over the last year. It was $29,700.
when I say no movement last week, when you and I and our attorneys met in Plattsburgh, I advised our attorney, I think we should go to arbitration. And if there's no movement, I think that's the way we're gonna have to go. Is-
Well, if that's the way that you wish to
Well,
go,
is there-
it's gonna be very expensive.
I've asked you for some movement, and I haven't got any from you. I have-
What specific, if I may ask, what
Yeah.
specific movement are you talking? Like, you keep bringing this 30,000 up, but I haven't ever heard of any negotiation other than not paying it. So you can't, in order to sit down and
It's
to
gotta be
hammer
tight.
out a new agreement,
Time,
it takes both sides to
Tom,
make
it's tied together.
concessions.
It's tied, that's part of the problem, and the EDU payment is part of the problem. And we need to solve it. There needs to be some middle ground. The village is getting more than 25% of the use of this total project. And I would
I
let
don't
an
agree with that.
arbitrator decide that.
I don't agree with that. The amount of money that was spent clearly shows that a majority of the money was spent here in the town.
If you have something to offer us, I would say no, there's no need for arbitration. But I need to know what you need to,
Well, Larry, in a sense, I agree with you. I know that arbitration is going to be very, very expensive, and it's not going to do either one of us any good, because most likely it's not gonna be binding. If it is binding, no matter what happens, and we've talked about this in the past, and I've tried to get this point across to everybody in the past. The only way that could make up the difference in those 2% in that September IMA was either we increase the sale of water dramatically, which hasn't happened,
In other words, the volume of sales.
or it's done with rate adjustments. Now, the village is not gonna sit back and lose $110,000 a year. I can't do that. I can't afford that. I have too many other expenses that I must take care of. I gotta repair some water lines. It's gonna cost the village, unless I can get a hell of a lot of grant money, somewhere between $400,000 and $500,000. Well, you're probably saying, well, that's not our business. Well, it is, because it should have been on that project.
It was part of the original project, we got left out.
It's the alternates that, anyway.
if there was money.
Originally, it wasn't an alternate, Larry. As the money got drawn down, it became an alternate.
So,
So it's either rate adjustments, or you seriously need to look, and this is just
okay,
speaking here. You seriously need to look at what you're charging for EDUs. When this whole thing started, the engineer said, use 404 EDUs for the whole District 6. That's what we based all our figuring on, 404. Matt Cooper threw that $113 out there because that kept the overall yearly cost to the consumers below the comptroller's hardship level. That's why it was there. $113 is just not a magic number. It was there because you had to pay EDUs, which was $452 if you use the 113 basis, plus the usage of each residence or each EDU. That's how this was figured. It was figured way lower than what we're using. I mean, I don't know what your usage or what your district usage is, but mine's about 150 a quarter. 2 quarters is the $300, that's the difference between the hardship level and the EDU cost. What you need to look at, and again, this is just you need to look at what you're charging your customers. There's a slight, if you want to keep your water levels or your water costs low, you need to make adjustments in your EDU charges. Now they're separate. I know that they're separate. But if you bring it up slightly, and we did the math real quick, if you bring it up, and it's going to be about $12 more a year. So you're charging $117 now. It takes care of a majority of the share of your debt. But you got to come up with an EDU figure. And this has been fluctuating around here for the last year and a half or so. You got to come up with a concrete figure. You need that to figure out how you're going to repay this loan. You can't go from 404 to 452 to 430. And these are just the numbers I've heard.
Yes.
You need to have some sort of rationalization to tell your people that this is why we're charging what we're charging. You got to tell them. You can't leave these folks in the dark. They need to know what you're charging them for. It's also, you know, you need money. I understand you need money to run your water service. What is this? Where's this $80,000 coming from? What is it for? Nobody seems to be able to tell me what it's for. I mean, you put $30,000 on the side over here and say, well, that's O&M. Where's the rest of this money going?
We've got little or no kitty to our slush fund for any breaks or anything.
Well,
We
again,
gotta-
you
we gotta-
need to plan for these
We
things,
gotta build up
but you need to have a plan. I mean,
I-
I know where my water district's going here for the next year and a half or 2 years.
okay.
You need to plan for these things.
But we're already way over the $800 threshold for water for our customers.
Well, the comptroller's limit right now is 816.
Yeah, we're way over that on the average.
Probably are. Because everything from the engineering corps, Mark Vancouver and Anthony and all of those people, all of that was put in way lower than what reality is.
Can't argue the point with you on that.
And they've said, I mean, the attorneys have said, everybody that I've talked to at EFC and other state agencies, they all agree.
Okay.
The confrontation is not between the town and the village, it's between the shared services group and the engineers.
Okay.
Harassment case.
Okay.
We need to know what you're looking for.
I'm looking for middle ground, I told you that before, and if you got something to offer us, we'll listen.
Well, I'm not gonna set an offer because my board is pretty adamant about the 25%.
Then we're adamant that, I don't like to use that word adamant,
Well,
that we need to.
we're at that point right now.
Okay, we need to find middle ground, and I think the only place we're gonna find that is through a mediator.
Well, we can go to arbitration,
'Cause you
that's
have-
fine, but remember, there's water rates involved here. The village is not gonna lose water, it's not gonna lose, I'm not going bankrupt for this.
Okay.
There's water rates that need to be looked at here, you need to look at your EDU rates, and we can go forward with this. Whether it's binding arbitration or non-binding arbitration, it's gonna be an expensive venture. Tom Renane estimates somewhere between $8,000 and $10,000. You're gonna have to call in witnesses, He said, the first witness we're gonna call in here is Matt Cooper and get this straightened out. I said, by God, I hope so, because he can explain why that September 2014 IMA was signed the way it was fixed up, the way it was. Now, you're basing your whole argument on that 60-40. All of us, both sides, have made adjustments to that all the way through. I mean, that was signed 2014. When the short-term loan came due, I hand carried a check down here for 25%. That was fine. When the long-term loan came due, there were many concessions made by the village to lower the rates, to adjust the rates. And we didn't get to sit down and talk to, until the second or third week in December about last year's payment. We can't do that. And there was a concession made then. And it flip-flopped. I mean, the town paid 60%, the village paid 40%. Again, going against what that IMA was all about at that time when it was signed. After many changes in water rate, what is now in effect is, again, you're paying 24 cents less a thousand than you were paying 2 years ago. Both of that IMA, to me, is a non-binding document. And you're resting your hopes on, well, it was signed, 60-40, it was signed. Yes, it was signed. Yep, it was signed. But it no longer holds any water as far as, we're concerned.
Well, I think an arbitrator or somebody else would have to tell us that.
Well, that's fine, but remember now, keep this in the back here. The water rates are going to have to be adjusted here.
If the water rates are adjusted, the state will be involved.
What's that?
The state will have to get involved. You
Well,
can't just charge us $20 a thousand, you can't do it.
Well,
It would
then
be right.
you need to sit down and look at your program.
The state
Because
will
I
involve.
believe that if you look at your program seriously, you can work this out. But so far, there hasn't been a whole lot of forward movement from this end.
Basing it on volume, do you really think, basing it on volume, do you really think that's intended to be fair? When the water system was already owned and operated by one entity, it's there.
But it's all new.
No, it's not all new, that's my point. Those wells are not new,
The wells
the
aren't-
systems
the
through the
water
village are
plant-
not new, the
Pardon?
water plant is not completely new, a treatment plant was added. That was all there. So,
The
when
pumps-
we
the pumps
signed,
are
I was here in the meeting, we were all here that night when we signed that agreement, when Matt proposed changing it from the 25 to 75. And I believe you were the only other person that was here, Larry, so please try to remember what took place. It was done specifically to be able to get the hardship loan.
Okay.
It's the only way the comptroller's office would accept it, the EFC. That's why, and we reluctantly signed it, but we signed it based on a verbal agreement that night that we're still gonna pay the loan back based on what materials were put in ground.
Okay. And the pumps are all new too, aren't they, that town?
Yes, pumps got replaced, yes.
The pumps are all been
Yep.
replaced, okay.
So if I made a deal with you tonight that said, we're gonna get a grant to buy 2 new snowplows, okay? And you said, oh, that'd be great, and what's it gonna cost us? We're gonna split it 50-50? And I said, no, cause you've got 4 already, and I've only got 1. Since you got more snowplows, you're gonna pay 4 times as much. That's what you're trying to do here.
Okay. I guess we're,
You're not trying to pay for what was actually put in place in each village and township, each entity.
and
You're trying to look at it as one system and go by
Never-
usage, you can't do that.
I have never asked for the 60% that the last IMA was signed for. I never have asked for that. I've asked some middle ground, something in between that.
Then it takes a group of us to sit around and come up with what middle ground everybody can live with.
I've asked, Greg and I have had many discussions, and I don't see any movement for any type of middle ground. If there is, I need to see that.
Well, that's a two-way street, you understand?
Oh.
That's a two-way street here. So I guess what's gonna happen, you decide that arbitration is the way that we're gonna go, and I'm fine with that. I think the village board is fine with that. But remember now, arbitration's not gonna happen until February or March. That loan has to be paid. on January 9th, it is the village's intent to deliver to you a check for 25% of that loan.
And you did tell me last week a check would be delivered the week of the loan,
It'll be delivered in plenty of time.
okay, because I think it's due the 8th.
So, remember here,
And we will have to borrow money from one budget to another to pay that.
well, see, this could have all been worked out months and months and months ago. Now we're here at the last hour.
Okay,
It's, you know, I have to have my budget. I have to know where my money's going. We have to understand where our spending is.
Regardless what we do going forward, it needs to get done in the next couple of months. You know, it'd be a shame to have to wait till February for the arbitration, but if that's what it is, it's what it is, but it needs to get done this quarter, not wait until September, October to start thinking about it again.
I agree with you, I've been after the attorneys all fall, I'll tell you that, I made many calls.
Well, I'd like to say
Yeah.
something. In the original agreement, and the ones we're talking
Yes.
about, there was this, and I know it's non-binding, but there was supposed to be a committee and it never happened.
The committee was waiting for a year to go by to meet and discuss the expenses of what had occurred over the past year.
Right.
That committee is there to suggest changes in the O&M cost, not to set water rates,
Right.
not to set any of that. It's there to set the rate for operation and maintenance.
But with the committee, if three people from the village and a couple from the town, at least people would get an understanding of where, you know, not that they're gonna set the cost, but they could probably understand better and explain to the two boards exactly where they have to go to make their monies. EDUs, they can suggest, which has never happened. And we sit here, you know, we don't have the whole village of Champlain board, we have two members, and we sit here as the town board, and we start to discuss things at the, like you say, at the end of the year, we should be going on progressively all year long.
Yes, I agree.
So we know where we are, we know where we're headed, and how much it's gonna cost everybody. And
That's my
next
point.
year, we're gonna be the same thing, so
That's my point exactly.
if they're going to arbitration, and so we put up a roadblock, the village of Champlain puts their feet in the dirt, and we sit behind here, we put our feet in the dirt, we try to figure out who's gonna have the biggest ditch dug, and we're gonna be on a standoff and be playing a tug of war instead of just getting together. You're saying, you know, you're, as the town is saying, well, we did a lot of upgrades to the water system, so that should all be considered, and you're not looking at that. But that's not really what we're looking at, is that, and I still say the village of Champlain, regardless of how you look at it, they're supplying us water and they're charging us for it, which they should. And I thought that's what they have, the only way they can make money is by selling water. And who's gonna buy it? We put the infrastructure in the town, we're laying the pipe down. It costs money, we're spending a lot of that
And
money.
that's what the EDUs were for.
Right,
To pay
but
for
the
that.
EDUs aren't paying the bill. You know?
According to the IMA that both parties signed in September of
Well,
2014,
but
we
again,
are paying our share
this
of the
is
bill.
what we're saying, it's
We are.
not written in stone, it should be a
No, it is
moving.
written in stone, it was a signed agreement by both
But
municipalities to
From what
pay.
Mr. Tremblay has, when he was here, it was an understanding that it wasn't, we're gonna abide, the only way, like you say, the only way you can get that money is to sign that agreement, or else there wouldn't be anything.
Well, I believe that was a public meeting that Matt Cooper came here, I don't know what date it was, and told us it had to be done within 2 or 3 weeks.
Okay, so even if it's written in stone, there has to be some kind of leeway here for people to, you know, not to be so excessive in the town that the people in the town can't afford the water. I mean,
We're already there.
you know, but if we make them pay more money, how are they gonna how can the village make more money? To pay, you want them to pay an extra, you know, we in the town want them to pay more than their 25% share. We want them to pay 40%.
We didn't say that,
Well,
we threw out different figures.
I
so
haven't heard any.
what are we asking?
I haven't heard different
I
figures.
mean, this is something that we should be
I asked.
talking all year long
I
about,
asked.
not just, like you said, not just at the end of the year.
I've asked many, many times, where's the settlement? Where can we settle this? And I was told there was absolutely no movement several times. So I don't know where to go with it.
Well, I guess
An arbitrator is not gonna make us pay more than 75%.
okay, so let's say that we go to arbitration, let's just for,
Yes.
we go to arbitration. And we gotta pay the bill this year because they're giving us a check for 25%.
Yes,
Alright, so we're not, this 2018 is gone. So the town is gonna have to come up with more money to pay this, so we gotta borrow from another fund. Okay, so we go to arbitration, now we're in 2019. And it's not gonna, like you said, it's not gonna happen overnight, so are we going to up the EDUs? Or are we going to make the water more expensive for the people in the town because we may lose? We got a plan on losing at arbitration, or coming out if we come out losing, and now we're gonna be behind again because we haven't charged enough EDUs to pay the bills.
how could we lose, could they make us pay more than 75%?
No,
No, but you're not gonna have enough, if we don't have enough money now at the EDUs that we're charging the people, you're saying we don't have enough money, right? We don't have enough money to pay our bill, our loan back.
We have absolutely no reserves, we're in the minus.
So if we don't have any movement, and next year, what's gonna happen in the next year?
I have
We're
floated,
still gonna be behind.
Until you get the
previous
volume,
meetings, I
You will.
have floated the request that we look very closely at what we're charging for an EDU right now. And if the number of 111 or 114 is accurate, we bump that up to 119, 120 per EDU, times the number of EDUs that we're still trying to grasp, and do the math.
That's
We're
$20.
gonna get a lot closer to what that bill is gonna be at the end of the year. That's the only way the town can raise money to pay for the loan. We can't sell more water to pay for the loan, that goes into water administration. So we need to change the EDU rate, just like we change people's taxes, 1, 2, or 3% every year. The cost of doing business keeps going up. The loan payment keeps going up a little bit every year. We're gonna have to change that. How much? We need to do the math.
A $5 increase, if my calculations are right here, it'd be $8,600 per year. And 2 years from now, when the loan's gone up $5,000 a year, we'd still be behind. Unless we get a lot of new customers.
There's the light at the end of the tunnel. More customers.
Where do we go, guys? Give me some direction.
Oh, we have to go both directions. We have to sell more water, and we have to bump up the EDUs. And keep borrowing money from one fund to another.
when is that water
Unless-
we're gonna get this year?
Unless there's some movement from the village,
what,
I mean, I
When's the
know
water
Larry
working
and
actually good?
his talk, the village
should be
about
starting early
some
next
kind
year.
of compromise or
It has to wait until.
working with them, and they're saying there is none.
Well,
We could
None,
all get
zero,
together
zip.
this month, as far as I'm concerned.
It's an ultimatum, we take
I mean, to look at.
75% or there's no agreement
Maybe we need to.
in the
survive on
discussions.
this.
And Larry said, well, let's talk,
Maybe
maybe
they
we
could be
could
the
work,
arbitration.
you know, a smaller figure there, you know, give a little bit.
but I think for this year, but if we get, that, I'm not crazy about going to arbitration with anybody, especially with the guys that are, it's like, guess what, you're gonna turn the tap off. They're the guys that are supplying us water. We're paying for we paid for the new pumps and everything, but they still have an opportunity to give us water. And we don't want them to jack the rates up of
And
the
that's why
water.
it was supposed
So
to be a
if-
shared water system service.
Okay.
No,
It
it
is,
was a
but
shared
then also-
service project, it wasn't a shared service system the way you just
Okay.
But
depicted it.
if we can get through, we're gonna pay whatever it is, we're gonna pay for 18, but I'd like to see, you know, I'd like them, you know, unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, I won't be here next year, but Jason will be, and I'm sure he'll do a great job, and I think people, we have to, on a monthly basis, at least on a monthly basis, converse and see where we're going for 2020 and 2019, without going if we get to July and there's no movement and there's still this, we still have time to go to arbitration, and hopefully we can, you know, maybe they can see a little differently what the town is trying to do, and then maybe we can see more of what the village is doing. I know you guys have been there, Ricky and Brian, and you've been,
We're not
Trying.
asking for the 60% that the last AMI says. We're not asking for that.
what would
We're
you?
not asking for that. We're asking for some compromise.
We've offered a number of proposals. In fact, Greg, you and I talked about a proposal last time we talked. And I think that was a very fair proposal. My proposal was, and again, this was without even talking to the rest of you, that we start at 25% for this year, for 2019. And then it would increase 1% until you get to 35%, and you cap it at 35%. You didn't feel that that was fair. That would allow you each year to plan with your village board how you would come up with that extra income over that 1% each year. But it wasn't alternative.
Well, Rick, we come back to the basics here. We believe that this project is a 75-25% split. My board feels very strongly that anything above that should be paid for by the town. And, you know, we've attempted at times, I mean, again, even if you start at 25 and next year go to 26 and 27 and 28, there's still no plans being made here. We shouldn't even be sitting here. This should have all been planned a year, 2 years ago. Look at it. Where are we gonna come up with the money? These EDU rates should have been adjusted a year or 2 years ago. I mean, you talk about shared services. Shared services, I had to foil a legal FOIL request to get figures from EDUs from this office.
Wait a minute, Greg, you didn't have to FOIL it, you never called me and asked me for any information.
Oh, I had to foil it because in Larry's office, that attorney said, I sent an email request to this office and it was discussed in that office on a speakerphone and Mr. Favreau said, let him foil it.
Well, I never got anything, because if you would've contacted me and asked me for any information, I would've gave it to you.
I'm glad to hear that, I really am.
And I never got a phone call from anybody on anything until I got the FOIL, and then
Nope.
I got that right to you.
Then that should have been shared with you. That request,
And
the
it was
original
never shared.
email request should have been shared with you.
Okay,
Well, can I add something?
Sure can.
Because I think Gene's in the same, or John, excuse me, John's in the same page I'm in. I think Rick has extended something out that should be in a meeting, and we should be sitting together and hammering those things out and coming up with an agreement. I don't think repeating what has been done up to now and going nowhere is gonna get us nowhere.
Exactly.
So I
think
do,
it's, and like you say, I think it's very important as the two boards trying to give a product to the residents, to try to grow this community, and it has to be done together. And it doesn't matter if it's $10 I gotta pay more in the village of Riders Point or in the town of Champlain to the village, we're all here. We're all part of the same group. Our kids go to the same school. We're a community. I mean, Wyeth has left us. We're, you know, Sheridan's gone, all the communities, all we got left is each other. And we can't be beating, I mean, you know, we all share, we drive through each other's villages and towns, we all share when the village of Champlain does something good. We all, you know, we're happy. When the village of Rouse's Point or the town does something, we're all part of this community, and we need to, we're not enemies here. This water project is for everybody. Who knows where it's gonna go in the future? But right now, it's a struggle to get it off the ground and get it paid, but we, you know, like I say, the more we sit down and the more often we talk about what is our problem, what are we gonna, how are we gonna do this, because it means a lot for, I'm sure, you know, the board members, sitting down and sending somebody a bill and say, oh, by the way, your EDU's gonna go up, but yet your water rate is really high too, you know, it's like, who wants to hear that? You know, it's so bad that the town gives an EDU one month and the water bill the next, so people don't, you know, have heart issues with this. So it's gnawing at us, and it's been gnawing at us since this whole thing started.
And we need to
And we
figure
were
out how to pay
thinking,
for
so,
it.
you know, maybe the engineers gave us a big round of yahoo because they estimated a lot more water usage than was really gonna happen. You know, and everybody thinking that they were the engineers, so they must have been the right ones to call on this, and then all of a sudden it's like, we're not getting the usage, and we don't have enough money to pay for this, all this infrastructure, and we gotta get together, we can't fight it, you know? I mean, yeah, so I say, before we end up in spending another $10,000 or $15,000 each, that's 30 grand, we could use that money by, you know, sitting down collectively and, you know, saying, okay, well, this is the way we feel, this is the way you guys feel, let's find some ground. Maybe it is a movement of 1%, you know, maybe there'll end up being no movement, but at least everybody will know. And everybody will be able to say, we did our best, and we have to pass this, you know, we have to increase our EDUs, or we have to do something, raise the water rates or whatever.
Rick mentioned this to me last evening now, when you came in to pick your agenda at 4 o'clock. I had not heard that theory, proposal, and I thought about it. I wouldn't dismiss it. I wouldn't say it's a go, I wouldn't dismiss it either. Okay? So I guess
It's a point of discussion.
Right, so what I'm suggesting, the same thing as John is suggesting, is we gotta get by this year, we're stuck here now. And-
This-
and
this
we're-
year's
we're-
bill-
We're really up against the,
this year's bill is going to be paid. Greg has assured me, I believe, that 25% is coming our way in January regardless.
It will be here.
Okay? We're gonna be in the hole the day we pay that payment. I do have some re-levy money coming, okay? I'm gonna be in the same position next year, if I gotta pay the 75%
I
again.
know, that's what I'm saying, so,
Okay,
That's
But
what
if-
we're gonna
if-
talk for the next 12 months before
Okay.
this happens.
yeah, we gotta talk on a very
I-
regular basis.
okay.
My point
Just
exactly.
wait. Don't wait till
I
October, but
mean,
we
either,
can.
either put this board in motion.
I think we
and
need
let
a-
that- And let them work at this, or we
Okay.
need to sit down.
His
The board's
proposal, I'm not saying
responsibility is not
it's
to set
the
these
one
water
or the
rates or
perfect
EDU
one,
rates.
No,
but it's
it's not.
worth discussing,
It's a starting.
because he's talking about a 10-year period, I believe, right? Let's put this to bed for 10 years. I'm not sure it'll work, but we've got to put the pencil to it.
So
Okay.
suggestion.
Well, hopefully in that 10-year period, there'll be some new water sales that will come about. You know, that was the whole focus. I mean,
Well,
yes, the engineers
already know,
oversold
right?
this project.
We pretty much know next year we should gain 10 new ones,
Oh, I hope so,
okay?
but
We got 3 or 4 on the Route 11. We got the truck inspection station coming. There's gonna be several, 5, 6, 7, 8, I don't know how many yet.
Where's the border patrol station at?
You know, that's been sitting there for
Still-
5, 6
still
years or more.
stagnant?
Okay? They don't even pay EDU, or do they pay EDU? I don't believe so on Route 11. You know that,
No, 'cause there's nothing there.
Brian? Well,
On
people
Route
who are
11,
vacant
I
lot
don't
pay
know.
something.
Yeah.
it's vacant, so it should be at least a half.
Yeah.
Yeah,
If we had, I don't know how many, they used to have 50, 60 employees, they got a lot more than that now, they tell me up here. That might be several EDUs
Where's that?
On the Ridge
at the
Road?
Ridge Road.
The Ridge
Oh,
Road?
yeah, they're,
Oh,
they're,
they
they're,
got
they've
three.
got some.
Yeah, they got quite a few, I don't know how many they got.
Well, I was told a few years ago they had 50, 60, they got way more than that now.
They got quite a few.
Yeah.
There's potential growth,
But they have
but we can't outprice ourselves in the market.
more than.
Yeah, they should have more.
Okay.
Well,
So I don't know where you wanna go with it. I will tell you, this afternoon, Matt Faber called me as I was leaving here. He told me you would be here. He had talked to Tom Renee. Hopefully hopefully you had something for us. He told me to call him back tomorrow, let him know what's going on.
Well, the something is that we sit down and talk about this, I mean,
yeah, but I think we need to,
You know.
I think John is right, we need to start at now, and we need to schedule it monthly, would be, I think, reasonable. It's gonna take a while to hammer this out. You've already got committee members on both boards, there's no reason why they can't sit down and start, not arguing, but trying to find a solution.
Tom, what I don't want to happen is, we got a proposal here, and we shuffle it around for 6 months, and
No, you're
then
right.
summer comes
You're right.
around, we still haven't done nothing, and first thing you know, it's fall, we still haven't done nothing. And next January and December, we're right back here talking again.
No, we can't do that.
I
But
might enter- I
but we
might-
can't do what we did the past 2 years either, is wait until October to
Right.
start talking about it.
But I would say, for the town's side, and this is definitely up to you guys, is that you gotta plan for ahead before this proposal, before you get to, you gotta start January or February and do something with the EDUs right away. And then, cause you can always, if you have to increase them, you can always lower them later on
Yeah, but,
in the,
John, we've got
but
customers.
if you don't put the money aside, I don't know, I guess you look at it differently, but if you don't put the money in there
I would
as a safety net and say, okay, well, listen, at the end of the year, folks, you know, we've, charged you $20 or $30 more EDUs than you need to be, we're gonna give you a little reward and give money back to you.
I would invite anybody to spend the 3 or 4 days with me after the bills goes out, when the people start coming in here.
Yeah, I'm not, I'm sure that they're screaming and hollering, but the problem is you're gonna scream a lot harder when the town taxes have to go up, because you borrowed money out of another budget and you haven't, and everybody's gonna get whacked with it, instead of the just.
Well, whatever we borrow,
District six.
if we have to borrow money in January to pay this bill of another budget, we've gotta pay it back when we get our re-levy back.
Well, then how are you gonna do that when you don't have any money from EDUs or water? If the water district doesn't pay for itself, all right?
Well, already
If
the
the
fourth,
District 6 doesn't pay for itself, where are you gonna get
the
the money?
fourth quarter of this year generated more money because we got more EDUs, right? So we know we're gonna be up 4 quarters next year. But our payment's gonna be up a little bit more next year. If there's any movement tonight, guys, all I see is sitting down, talking about Rick's proposal. And if it doesn't fly,
No, not just Rick's proposal, sit down and look at all the problems within that IMA that we have, both sides. I'm not,
really,
and I'm not saying I'm not considering his, I would. But I think we need to look at all of it, I'm not saying we're just gonna sit down and talk about that proposal.
I wanted to talk about the $30,000 we owe, because you guys are not doing everything that was intended to do. That was intended to do the billing and the collecting. And we are, giving that responsibility to somebody else next year, starting January, at a stipend of $3,000 a year. I would like that 30,000 to be reduced to 27.
that 30,000 is a reflection of the cost it takes to run that water plant.
But
If
once,
it costs us $29,000 to run the water plant, it doesn't matter if you give somebody or whatever you're going to do with that $3,000. That doesn't matter.
if it-
It still cost us over and above what that's all about.
Okay.
We paid over $76,000, $77,000 above the last year. I mean, our electricity went up 46%, our chemicals are up. Time Warner Cable, just to have surveillance and have an internet connection is something we pay for every year. Don't go with the personnel, because those personnel, our budget is 50, 30, 20, and the budget, 20% for personnel. We showed you, and those were as close as we could come. The bills and all of this stuff, electricity, all of that. We showed you that it cost us $29,700 some dollars above what we had to pay. The village cannot be expected, that's your 40%. The village cannot be expected to eat that 40%.
Okay.
We can't do it. I mean, there's a balance here. You gotta keep it balanced.
Okay.
I can't go to the, you know, and another thing with operation maintenance, look at how that's applied in the IMA. And this is not me just picking a spot where, you know, it benefits you or it benefits me. Look at that. That $30,000 is supposed to be split up and charged as a user cost. So if you're paying the $30,000 or whatever the water board sets and says, well, last year the village paid $60,000 above. So the O&M fee, if it's 40%, you figure it out, that has to be broken down into usage fee. That's what it says. Read it. That's what it says. So if you're selling 8 million gallons of water here in the town, well, actually you're getting about 9 now, but if whatever you're selling in the town, O&M has to be broken up into that figure as part of the usage fee. I mean, if you got 404 EDUs, divide it into what the water sales are, what you're selling, and then break it down into usage fees. That's how this was supposed to be addressed. Read it. It's in that IMA. It's in both of them. Look at it. That's how this was supposed to, O&M is supposed to say, well, you know, we're going to put it on your usage fee. Yeah, it's going to cost, you know, if you're charging them $9.04, which is what you were, you may have to charge them $10 or $10.50 or $11 to handle the O&M payment. But that's how that was supposed to be figured out. You know, this is over and above what the project is paying for here. The project paid for the filtration system. If you think that's high now, I mean, we have to change filters every 6 to 8 weeks. It's about $2,400 a pop here. And if chlorine gets into those, for whatever reason, chlorine gets into those microfilters, your O&M payment's going to jump, because that's between $60,000 and $70,000 to replace those filters. We asked to have a spare set on the shelves, charged to the project. Engineer said no. They didn't even put an expansion tank and a damn hot water heater in that building. We did, so it doesn't blow up. But that's how that was supposed to figure. I mean, Matt threw that figure out, 30,000. We'll put 30,000 in here and see how it goes. Well, he checked. He went down through there, and it turned out to be pretty darn accurate. It doesn't matter how you do it. In a way, you're doing it now, because by increasing your water rate to set money aside to create your reserve, you're doing it now. But originally, that's how that was supposed to be. That was supposed to be collected. Take what you're selling or what you're buying. You know, every quarter we send you used 2.6 million this time. You break it up. You got 400 EDUs. You break it up. That's what your charge is. You know, for O&M. Set it aside. And then at the end of the year, you should have more than enough to pay your share.
What do we want to do, guys?
Are you asking me or your board?
Anybody?
I'm told you what I'm suggesting. I'm suggesting that rather than go to arbitration right away, that we try to sit down and
I
form a
think-
board to work that out.
It's gotta go to arbitration now. There's a 30-day window on that,
A 30-day window on what?
on the arbitration.
Where is the 30-day
What
window?
does that mean?
Why is that 30 days?
If you're going to use it for this,
This payment.
this payment,
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
This payment?
yeah,
Once
That's not
due in
gonna happen.
January?
you're right.
That's not gonna happen.
No, it won't happen that quick.
Well, no,
No,
but
It
the
gets
only.
applied to that.
Pardon?
It gets applied to this payment that's due in January.
Yes.
The earliest you're gonna go to arbitration is probably February. Or even,
Or later,
or later.
or later, I'm thinking.
And you're
And
saying-
then maybe set back because you'll have to subpoena witnesses to come in. It takes time for them to show up. You gotta do it on their, they're not gonna come in on your schedule, they're gonna come in on their schedule. And again, if you want, Matt Cooper, in about 2 months, 3 months, is through his period where he is shot down by Bernard Carr,
His restriction.
his restriction, I mean, he's got 16 or 17 projects out there that he can't comment on. This is just one of them. And he has volunteered to come down here and talk to both boards and anybody in the public, talk to both boards and explain how that September of 2014 IMA was set up. It's gonna be refreshing a lot of memories.
There seems to be, it seems like an impartial person would be the way to go. I mean, it really is. We have one way of understanding what was signed by both parties. You have a different understanding of it. An arbitrator is a third party that's impartial and can come up with maybe a solution. It may be simpler, they may come up with the solution that we need to do.
But that's the whole thing about trying to avoid arbitration, is what you're paying for. You're gonna pay Matt Favreau to represent you. I'll have to pay Tom Renane to represent the village. And then the two of them are gonna pick another attorney or somebody who is impartial
Yeah, we
to
both-
sit and be the arbitrator, so to speak. I mean, I would assume that as the evidence comes out, as the discussion goes on, it's Matt that's gonna say, well, I believe the town's right. Or it's Tom that's gonna say, well, I believe the village's stand is right. This is where that impartial person sits there and says, well, this is how I feel it is. In the meantime, you gotta pay for them. And in the meantime, it's not gonna happen before January 9th of 2019. So, is that a done deal? Well, I think arbitration can be avoided if the agreement is to sit down and talk about this. I mean, the door is always open. It's not something that's,
We've asked for
Yeah.
that though, Greg.
pardon?
We've asked to sit down and talk about something more than 25%, and you said no.
Larry, let me tell you, how many requests have I had from you to sit down and discuss this?
Did I call you to come to my office a month ago?
That was the first time.
Well, we've talked many times back.
That was the first time.
I called you in, I'm just roughly a month ago, whenever it was, and I have talked to you several times.
Well, then why haven't we sat down? Why wasn't this all discussed last year? Why are we waiting until September of this year to get this hashed out?
I'm not gonna put the blame anywhere.
This goes into two-way street. It's always gone on two-way street. That's all I mean, the door is open. I've told these folks that. The door is always open. You ask me what you want for paperwork, I will give it to you.
Okay, did you tell Rick last night that was a no?
Pardon?
Did you tell Rick last night when he mentioned, or the night before, whenever it was,
It was last week, 2 weeks ago.
Well, whenever it was.
It was something that, it would be very difficult to get by my board, but it was something that we could talk about.
Did you tell Rick that?
Yes, I did.
I don't.
Well, that was my understanding. Rick, if that wasn't yours, then I'm sorry, but I'm not gonna make that decision. I gotta go back to my board, same as you gotta go to your board.
Well, I think the bottom line is we have to work together. I think everybody
Exactly.
agrees with that. I think everybody would love to avoid arbitration. But if we're going to, open up, to meeting again, you're not in favor of doing it while we move forward in applying for arbitration. but it still might prevent it from, you know, going to a point where,
Oh, it may, sure, it may end up being there. It may end up being an arbitration. But I still think that the easiest way to handle this is to sit down and talk. But there has to be an understanding of both sides. I mean.
You and I did that last week in the lawyer's office. Did we?
We talked.
And there was absolutely no movement, and you told me there was no movement.
Well, there wasn't, because the village board believes that 25% is our fair share of this debt.
Okay, then where do you go from here?
So there we go, okay,
So,
I understand. Okay,
But the door is still open to talk.
well, how long, I don't want the door open till next December.
Jesus Christ.
Okay,
On that, I gotta leave, because we tried to do this.
okay,
We tried to set this up. Why are we waiting until, from January, when I requested that we sit down, and I will sit down, that we sit down and talk about this? And here we are, there's no movement, there's no discussion, there's no request to meet, there's nothing until September.
well, okay,
And then, you know, it went 2 meetings.
okay.
You can't, no, I'm not gonna, it does no good to point fingers here. It does no good to,
No, we gotta stop doing that.
right,
no.
But when the committee got back to me, they said there didn't seem to be any movement, am I correct, guys?
yeah.
Well, when you start off and I ask what you're looking at, and I'm told that the town board has decided to do the village of Champlain a favor by splitting us 50-50, that's an embarrassment.
Okay,
That is an embarrassment.
Greg, we never represented the town board. We were negotiating.
I thought we were an impartial group.
We are.
Number one, we really can't make recommendations anyway.
Well, that was the
We were
recommendation
trying
that
to, I
was
think,
given to me
open up
and Janet at
the
that
table
meeting.
for ideas to bring back to each of our own groups
Mhm.
and to see what they thought.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we did.
Well, it didn't sound like you were doing much, the village of Champlain, much of a favor by offering a 50-50 split on this.
As a starting point, I mean.
But we
were
moved
willing
away
to-
from the original IMA.
Well,
Correct.
the town has done that repeatedly.
And I think we since then have even moved further away from what that original IMA was.
Well, then
So-
that shows the necessity to sit down and talk and discuss these things.
It's good faith.
There was no movement after that. I mean, there was no suggestion of meeting. There was no talk about when do you wanna meet again. There was no talk about, hey, let's sit down and beat this up.
Because you would flatly refuse to discuss any change in
The
the 25.
discussion's there.
But you said there is no discussion on the 25% the village will contribute. End of discussion.
That's because that, we believe that that's a fair share, but you can still sit down and talk about it. Just don't
But it's
embarrass
not gonna
us.
change. I mean, that's the point, you know, we can
Well,
go.
I would read this, Brian, as saying, yeah, I'm absolutely certain that I don't wanna move off 25%.
Mhm.
All right, but it still doesn't mean that you can't talk to me and convince me that I should move off 25%. I might go to something else.
There was
I mean,
no.
No, I don't, it doesn't sound, I mean, unless
Rick, was
unless
there
he's,
any- was there any
trying to pull the
discussion?
wool, first of all,
There was no
I
discussion,
don't, I
John.
wouldn't wanna go
None.
to arbitration, but it's, I could sit down with the people in the village. We
I've
can sit
always-
down, we can
I've
go,
always
and we
felt
can
that.
sit down, we can come here, we can have one meeting there, one meeting here, but when you first start out with an adversary, and if it's adversarial, which to the point it is, you know what I mean, business-wise, not personality-wise, but business-wise. And then say, well, wait a minute, look at my point of view, look at this. I know where you're coming from now, let's discuss the numbers, let's sit down and look at the plan. Let's take a look and see what you're talking about. Why are you so adamant? Never mind this IMA, the IMA, it should be a floating, it says every year it should be changed, it should be, what I got out of it is that
No.
people should, not that
EDUs
should,
be changed, not the
well, okay,
IMA.
EDU,
The
so
IMA
then
should not be
if
changed.
that's what it says and you read as an EDU ought to be changed, well, guess what? The EDU's not paying the bill, so what's gonna happen? Raise the EDU. I mean, if you're saying the EDU isn't paying the bill,
I thought you've just changed everything here. We're talking about, the
Well, no,
village
but-
said no to any discussion of the 25%. It wasn't a let's discuss it, let's work on it, it was.
Well, he is now,
No.
he said, he just,
No.
did I hear him not say that? He said that he's willing to discuss it.
It's the only way
Not
this is
that
gonna
he's
move
gonna
forward.
change, but
I
he's
think
willing to
I think some of
discuss
us agree that the
I
only way
am
it's gonna move
anyways.
forward is, you gotta sit down and
You
talk about it.
gotta somehow move
Part of it,
forward on
yeah.
this,
But
or go to arbitration, but I don't
I
waste
think
your
that's what we
money.
need is an impartial person, you know, to look at it and get it done. And maybe have some suggestions on the future, the way to split the costs.
Okay. We know where we stand, I think we know where you guys stand. I think you understand that we're not asking for 60%, we're not asking for 50%. We might not even ask for less than that even, but we need to talk. And I would like to schedule a meeting with both boards, both full boards if possible, next week. We know that's not gonna change, I can't see where it's gonna change anything for this year's payment. We need to move forward. If we don't get some movement, with another full board meeting, two full boards, then I think we seriously need to go to this, seek some help to settle the agreement.
Without Calvin, right?
Is that a fair assessment?
Well, I don't know how far we're gonna go with full boards.
I agree. I think with full boards,
Okay, how do you wanna handle it? Just please give me suggestions.
I have no issue with having two people from each board meet. Find common grounds.
Yeah, but,
I think if you get a full board, all you're gonna get is a lot of back and forth and not a lot's gonna get accomplished.
okay?
Could there be ground rules set as to the meeting? And
Correct.
what the purpose of the meeting is, and saying that there's not gonna be, you know, that this, the purpose of this is to do A, B, C, and D, if you set the ground rules, and if it gets off track, you say,
Correct.
no, we're not, this is what we're here for?
Okay.
And they're chronological.
I'm not,
You satisfy the first before you move to the second, and then.
Well, instead of starting with payments, and talking about payment issues or whatever, pick something else in the IMA that can be dealt with and settled. Something that we can find common ground in section 2 or section 3, I mean, it's all gotta be done. It's all gotta be rewritten. And I think that was what you and I talked about, we gotta find something other than section 8 or whatever it may be with the payment issues. Find some common ground in section 2. Rewrite section 2, rewrite section 8, I don't care. But find some common ground there and work towards the solution of the section of that IMA that's causing so much issues. I mean, I think there's common ground there. I strongly believe that, but the way it's going here, you know, I like your analogy. You dig your heels in, I dig my heels in, you're gonna make a hell of a ditch or eventually.
okay.
I mean, I think that's, to me, that's a good starting point. That's a logical way to go.
So you want 2 board members from each team?
I think so. I think it'd be a whole lot more productive
Mm-hmm.
than trying to satisfy 10 people. You only gotta satisfy 4. The 4 people are gonna bring it back to their respective boards anyway. You know, they can't, whatever we're talking about, you know, if we come to find some agreement, some common grounds, you're gonna have to come back to your boards anyway to get improvement,
Approval.
or even to some respects, improvement, maybe, I don't know, you know? But I think that's what's gonna have to happen. Yeah,
Good suggestion.
I agree.
I would say start sometime in early January and keep at it,
Yep.
you know? Keep at it. Whether it's every month, every 3 weeks. This isn't going away. It's just not gonna go away. You know, it increases every year by 4,000 or whatever it is, and unless we see a whole crush of industry come in that's gonna use a hell of a lot of water, it's up to the 2 boards now you know.
That's the number. I'm pretty open next week.
Pardon?
I'm pretty open up. Me any day, in the evening next week.
Yeah, well, I'm sure we can find a common date. I think between now and probably the first of the year, it's kinda tied up with everything going on, but I have no issue the second week in January, third week, in whatever.
I really don't wanna go that far out.
Pardon?
I don't wanna go that far out.
Well,
What's your consensus? I mean, what, I think it's, the sooner the better.
Well,
Well, I don't, I mean, you have some major issues, and you're gonna be this isn't gonna be done overnight, so I think with the holiday season coming, you know, I would just say, you know, bite the bullet on this year and start working in January when things calm down, and then you can sit down and, like you said, go over the IMA, take it from step one, set up your rules, like Jason was saying, figure out what you wanna address chronologically, go back in history and go slowly at
Maybe
it.
it should just be a water.
You don't wanna just jump
I
and
think we
get
need
it all
new
done.
members doing
It's
this.
not gonna happen in 1 week anyway.
I'd still like to see the arbitration start.
They're just gonna
That-
dig your heels
that-
in further.
It has to be done. If it's not done, you might as well kiss it goodbye. If you wait until
Can that be
December of
done?
next
Can that be
year.
done, if this, what we're talking about right now, if it doesn't work out,
No.
can that happen in February?
Because it'll start too late to really mean anything.
But
It
can we,
needs to start now.
could we delay that until at least February? Give
It
this,
needs
this
to
current
start.
idea a
We're
chance.
talking, yes, but we're talking months of supposed, yes,
Maybe
yes,
not.
we are talking months, there's no way around it.
There's no rush to start.
But
You're
if
talking
that's,
months in it.
if we're
You
talking
think
about
there's a rush,
arbitration,
Rick, to start?
the arbitration is where we need to start. It's an impartial person, impartial panel, let them come up with some conclusions while we're working on it, and see what their opinion is. You know,
If you wanna throw the money out, that's the place to
I,
start.
I don't want to, but I
I
think
don't
it's
think we-
necessary.
Well, I think if you put some different people in
I think it's
this,
necessary.
I think you might get different results.
Well, we,
You guys have been butting heads for all this time, unfortunately, only at the end of each year. And it's not going anywhere, and I think put the same people in the room, my opinion is put the same people around that table, you'll get the same result.
Rick and I met 4 times summer before it. 'Cause we wanted to try, in July and August, we weren't doing it in September, we were doing it in July and August. And we kept getting the same, yes, and we were.
But that's not all of what was just said.
No, I'm just saying,
What was just-
what's
was just
saying
said-
is we
what
waited
was
until
just
the
said for
last
first-
minute.
For the first time tonight, and I wanna agree with what Tom was saying, we're putting the same people out there who got their heels in. Okay, and I'm not, think about who you might envision, okay? I think maybe that's part of the problem. And we need some fresh points of view out there, and I'm not saying that to volunteer myself.
Then that's a that's a good point for arbitration then, a different point of view. Someone who has no
I think
dog in the fight.
arbitration should come over. if this
But we
doesn't work.
will have lost it for this year. That's the whole point. If you do it after the fact, it's no good. I say, start with the arbitration. If it gets settled, that's great. But if it doesn't get settled, we're already into the process and it should be almost complete. That would be the thing that would get things going. You know,
all arbitration is going to do is it's going to cause more issues.
I'd like to follow
Because
your
if
suggestion.
we go through the arbitration
Pursue
process,
your idea of meeting, setting up a meeting time. And whether it's this month or January, you guys
Listen,
decide.
I have respect for Greg's stance that he takes, but I called Greg a month ago,
You know.
and we talked for an hour,
Yes,
and we got absolutely nowheres.
okay, but I'm following up on what you suggested a couple of minutes ago.
What?
Get together and eat. Your first suggestion was both boards.
Yes, I understand his theory on
Okay,
that
so
one.
maybe
I understand
whether
his
it's not
theory.
both boards, or maybe it's a select group from each board.
Okay,
But let's do that before we spend money arbitrating.
that's why I suggested immediately, next week.
When? I don't know.
I didn't know we showed that.
Is it fair to say,
I'd be good with that.
after we meet once or twice, if we don't see no possible solution,
Yes,
we'll immediately do arbitration?
it sounds fair.
I guess there's a possibility, you keep talking. If there's not, stop talking.
At least you have that option.
I don't want to drag this into spring, then decide we still don't have an agreement, then we gotta start.
Again, I'm gonna ask, like I did again last year, that this all be covered and taken care of and discussed and come to some settlement before the 1st of June, when I have to make my budget. I have to have my budget approved in May.
Right. So,
And you think meeting once a month is sufficient, Greg, to meet that
You could meet
requirement?
once a month, you could meet every other week or every third week, Rick.
Again, I don't think the frequency needs to be to that point, but I think once a month is
I-
sufficient.
I think once a month
I
would
think
be
some common grounds could be established at that.
minimally sufficient.
I think you establish your common grounds in the beginning, and
Yeah.
then move from there. Yeah.
Well, you know, there's other issues in that IMA that need to be discussed. There's more than just this loan repayment that needs to be looked at. There's different sections there. I mean,
That's the one that's.
when
most
you and I,
pressing at the
when
time.
we first started, we picked 2 sections because those were the ones that were, those were the ones that had the most discussion on. Loan repayment, O&M, how are we gonna run this project? But there's other ones there that too, I mean, need to be hammered out. You could probably do that in 2 meetings. I mean, there's a lot of it that's repetitive. There's a lot of it there that's unnecessary. Go through and pick and choose what you need to have to make it work. And then look at the contending issues of loan repayment and O&M and, you know, how we're gonna handle water main breaks and how we're gonna handle these other bills. I mean, you know, these are all issues that need to be looked at. And I agree with Tom. I think some fresh eyes need to look at this.
Maybe other than you and I, Greg?
I have no qualms with that.
I'm just, just asking a question.
I have no, yeah.
It appears that way.
Pardon?
I said, yeah, that's what I think it appears as. I think you've reached a stalemate
I
at the
mean,
point where it's.
no matter what no matter what Tom and whoever, and I'm assuming I'm gonna, you know, Tom is going to be a leading contender here. Not that it's a prize fight or anything, but, what is discussed will have to come back to the boards anyway.
Mhm.
Whether it's Jason or Brian or whomever it's going to be, they gotta come back to the boards and discuss this. They can't decide that it's gonna be a 60-40 or 75-25 or whatever. But you got 2 people from each board, representing each board, that are gonna sit there and say, well, this is what we need to talk about. You gotta do more than dig your heels in here.
Worth a try.
It's worth a shot. I mean, you meet for a couple months, if you don't find any progress, maybe arbitration's the answer. Or, as Rick suggested, start the arbitration process. It's gonna take 2 or 3 months anyway. If you can't meet and find something that works in 2 or 3 months,
You probably should be at arbitration.
go to arbitration.
yeah. And he wants his budget in by June, so. You know, something should work.
I'm required by law to have that budget in.
Noticed?
But
Okay.
I still think meanwhile, we gotta figure out what the EDUs are gonna pick.
Can we pick a date?
You gotta set.
Rick and
Okay, how about this?
Can we pick a date?
How about this?
Let's make it concrete.
You and you. Sit down, pick a date. Pick some topics to discuss. And go from there. Put somebody else. Tom wants somebody else? He can choose somebody else. You want somebody else? You choose somebody else. So the 2 of you, you and somebody else, Tom and somebody else, sit down and, but I'd like to see the 2 of you, Rick and Tom, take the lead. Pick a date. let's sit down and meet, let's talk about section number 3 in the IMA, or whatever you choose, I don't care, whatever, I mean, it's up to the two of you. At least then, you got some people, fresh people looking at it, and you can make some movement. Then you're gonna come back to the boards and say, well, this is what we discussed, this is what we think. I mean, right now,
I'm good with that, Rick.
it's a stalemate.
I'm gonna go a step further and say, Tom, what I do is interact with your board and pick 3 topics. And I'm gonna do the same thing with my board, and then we can meet and see where it goes, if you know, the rest of you are up to it.
Is that agreeable?
Yep. Absolutely.
Thank
Are
you.
you available during the day, Tom?
Pardon?
During the day,
Yeah.
most days only in the middle. I'm subbing as a school bus driver, so I'm all over the place.
There's no school next, oh, yeah, there's.
Lucky
Right, the
little
week
devil.
after there isn't, next week there is.
That's right, you get it next week, you'd have to do it the evening, right, get this thing started. I'd like to have at least one meeting before the first of the year, okay?
You
But
would.
Are you okay with meeting one night next week?
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely.
But if you're gonna have 2 of you, we'd like to know that ahead of time, so Rick can have somebody with him, okay?
Oh, yeah.
Well, I think the first time, do we need 2 people?
No, I think the
I
first time
think
it's
the first
you
time,
two.
I think Tom and I can just sit down
Okay,
and
Okay.
kind of,
okay, that's fine, I got no problem with that.
It's a good start.
Chief negotiators.
Don't start throwing titles out.
that's all right. You know what happens with those titles? Press gets all over there.
Great.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Get a hold of me, Rick, for the time? That's,
If you wanna,
If we don't see you again, Merry Christmas.
I'm just
and
gonna step out for a
I
second.
wanted to just hear you.
Exchange numbers.
Not me. Didn't do that. You're a good man.
He can't tell, he cannot
You
do those tickets now.
Your appearance that started helping and started moving things here.
I don't know about that.
I
My red, that's my red sweater.
What?
I think that's probably it. Merry Christmas.
Okay. I need a motion to adjourn.
See ya.
I'll make your motion.
All in favor?
Aye,
Aye, aye.
Oh,
Oh, red jacket, red sweater.
this is one of the most educational experiences for you to sit there
Greg,
and hear everything.